How's everyone doing today? This is Obeta Gamer, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about budget gaming and what goes into making a computer that is satisfying your gaming needs. So let's run through all the different parts that I think are essential for making a computer / gaming computer. First, the CPU. Then we've got RAM, the motherboard, hard drive, the SSD. Not really essential, but we can throw it in there anyway. Of course you need a case, a power supply, a graphics card, and essential you need fans. Not essential, lighting and LEDs. I think it does make it look cool though if you have LEDs, but again that's up to you in your choice when you're making your PC. Let's look at CPU first. The CPU is basically the brain of the computer. It's going to dictate how fast your computer is processing its programs and running its operations. Also, your CPU has a lot to do with games. A lot of people don't know this, but it does change the performance of games dramatically. So, when it comes to CPUs, I'm only going to talk about Intel because AMD is a whole nother story, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But for me, it's Intel. So, I'm going to recommend to you guys an i5 4690K. This runs at 3.5 gigahertz stock, which basically means that it's a fast stock speed. For gaming, it's fine. It works great. It's reliable and it's overclockable if you want to go that route. You can go to the i7s with like a 4790K or something like that, which runs at like 4.4 gigahertz. It will cost you maybe $100 more, and you will get a lot more, or maybe 4 more cores. But realistically, an i5 is fine. You don't need to buy an i7 for gaming. If you want to go there, you can, but I think for budget gaming, an i5 is fine. RAM, now, people forget that RAM is essential. You need memory. It needs memory allocation in games, and RAM needs to be there. You need at least 8 gigabytes of RAM in a gaming PC. It is essential that you have that. I mean, you can go more, it starts becoming redundant and useless, but if you want to smack in 64 gigabytes of RAM, then be my guest. For a Kingston HyperX Fury RAM, you're looking at about $50 US for about 8 gigs of RAM, which is pretty good. Now, the motherboard, that's entirely up to you. You want to pick a motherboard that is compatible with your CPU. It has to have the same socket, and also the RAM has to be compatible with the motherboard. And also when you're looking at cases, it needs to fit in the case. But the motherboard is up to you. You can choose whatever computer type you want. There's ASUS, MSI, Gigabyte, whatever the hell you want. You don't really need to go off the rails and have, you know, a $600 motherboard. That's ridiculous. Only people that have money to splash around would do that. A motherboard that's maybe, I don't know, $100 is fine, and it will work fine. You don't need all the memory sockets and, like, you know, 4 or 5 or even 6 PCIe Express, because honestly, who's going to chuck in that many graphics cards? Not me. When it comes to hard drives, you want at least 1 terabyte, probably more these days. You can chuck in you know, a couple of terabytes and run them in RAID. RAID's another whole story. Basically, I'll maybe go into that on another episode, but for now, just get a standard hard drive. You can look at Western Digital. They have different types of hard drives. You can get the Western Digital Green, which runs at a slower RPM, maybe 4,500 RPM, which means that it'll last longer because there's less chance of any damage happening to the disk. They've got Western Digital Red, Black, Blue is standard, I guess. Blue is a good one to go for because it's just standard, reliable, and it works great. So 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte, whatever you want. 1 terabyte looking at like $50 US, which is pretty good. SSDs, you don't need one. I chucked one in my PC just because I thought it would be good to boot up with an SSD, and like, it boots up in less than 10 seconds. It's great. I think I've got a Kingston SSD in there with like 60 gigabytes of storage on it, which is nothing, and it cost me like $45 US. But I think that if you're on a budget, don't worry about an SSD. Just boot off the hard drive, it'll be fine, and you can change that over later when you get some more money if you want to go that route. If you want SSDs to hold games, I recommend getting at least a 250 gigabyte SSD or something close to that. And because honestly, games these days are huge, and you won't download a game less than a gig, so space runs out fast. Case is entirely up to you. You can go mini ATX, but you need to get a small motherboard. You can get all the different types of cases you want. I think mine, I've got a DS Aerocool 200. It's a pretty cool case. It's unique. Got like a rounded front with like a temperature gauge at the top, which I stick between my graphics card and CPU, which is pretty useful, to be honest. It tells me how hot they're getting. And whatever case you want, just get it. I know NZXT make really good cases, and there's a lot of good brands out there, so have a look at that, do some research and find what case for you. I think they normally range around $80 to $100 for a good case, but you can obviously go cheaper on that. Power supply depends what kind of graphics card and what things you're putting in your computer, because you need to have a power supply that can compensate for that draw of power in your machine. So my PC, I went with I think it was, hold on a second, I can't even remember now. It was one second, I'll cut this out. It's a Corsair CS750 modular power supply. Now, what that all means is that 750 watts, and that's going to handle pretty much most graphics cards, unless you're looking at like Titan X's, which are, not great for budgeting PCs. I mean, you're spending over $1,000, let alone, all the other stuff you're going to spend on. But the modular part of it just means that all the cables are bound together, and basically it's plug and go. Basically, it's so easy to use, and I think it's an 80 plus bronze, or I think it's bronze, which is pretty good. You can get the different energy ratings through the 80 plus system, which goes from bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So it's not the best, but it does the job well. Now, GPU, the most important part of a gaming PC, in my opinion. I guess it's not really, because without the CPU, RAM, motherboard, that kind of stuff, nothing would work. But each individual part is important, and I think for a gaming PC, the graphics card does dictate how well your games will run, and what resolution they will run as well. So what I went for in my PC was above average, I guess, or it's probably close to average. I went for an EVGA super clocked 970 with AXE cooling, I think ACX cooling, which does the job really well. It can play at 4K because it's got above 3 gigabytes of memory. It runs every game pretty smoothly, and I have no complaints with it. The only drawback from the EVGA 970 is that they promised 4 gigabytes of memory, and there was only 3.5 with an extra 5 gigabytes on the side, which doesn't make it 4. It's kind of just a weird system that confused everyone and made no sense, but that's their problem. I think the graphics card works fine. It has I would not need to replace it anytime soon, so that's good. And if you're looking for a really like budget type gaming PC, then you might want to go for like a 500 series with a 560 or 570 or something like that, and that'll satisfy your needs fine. that's pretty much the bare essentials. You need fans, of course. You need fans. You'll get fans in your case, but you'll need fan for your CPU. A CPU cooler that I use that is really, really good is the I think it's the Evo 12, if I'm not mistaken, and that runs really well. It's basically got every, I mean, it just cools the CPU, but you can go water cooling, you can go yeah, it's the Cooler Master Hypo 212 Evo CPU cooler. So, and it comes with a fan. It's pretty standard and it works pretty well. That's essential. Lighting LEDs, you don't need them, but they look pretty cool if you have them. Same as optical drives. No one really uses CDs anymore, but I bought one just because they're cheap, and it's like sometimes barely ever I use it. So that's pretty much it. Guys, I just want to say, all girls, whoever the gamer is, whoever the whoever the computer enthusiast is out there, you don't need to go crazy. You get locked into this kind of mindset where you need, or you think you need, the best possible hardware out there, and you don't. You can survive with middle range hardware, and it actually will surprise you how powerful some of these things are when there's 10 more things above it in the line that are 10 times more expensive. So just do your research. That's what I really want to emphasize here. Do your research, find out what you want, find out all the different parts and whether they're compatible and what kind of color scheme you're going for, because honestly, if you're spending the money, you might as well go for the blue type of RAM, or the motherboard with a, you know, blue theme, or a blue hard drive, or, you know, whatever color you're going for. Just try and match it up, because there's nothing worse than having green and red and yellow and orange, and it just looks terrible. So that's my advice to you. You guys can go away and hopefully you can start looking at PC parts. I think a good place to start is Amazon. They have some really nice stuff. You can also look at, there's plenty of websites out there that have really good deals on PC parts, but I tend to look at Amazon and see what they've got, and because they reference to other websites as well, so it's good to see you know, the different prices from other websites. But I think that's basically it. All you need to do now is just go away, have a think about it, and join the PC master race, because let's be honest, PC outweighs consoles in every way. I'm just starting a fight there, but I don't honestly mean that, guys. I know that consoles have their benefits, and I know that PCs have their benefits. When it comes down to it, it's personal preference. There's no right or wrong choice. There's just options, and basically we should be happy that we have all these options instead of fighting over PC or consoles. I play Xbox, I play PlayStation. I've played PlayStation for a good part of my life, since the PlayStation 1 came out, and I played Sega before that. And I had the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, and I've just now stopped and I said, no, I'm not going to buy the PlayStation 4. I'm not going to spend all that money on games. I'm going to build a PC gaming computer, and I'm going to play PC games. And it has worked out really well for me. I'm really happy with my PC and what I've got, and doing tests on it, and it is running games at, well, it could run at 4K if I had a 4K monitor, but you know, I'm not that well off. So the the games that I'm running at, or the resolution I'm running at, is fine. It works well, and I'm happy with that. So that's good. Hopefully you guys can go away and look at different hardware and say, maybe that'll be right for me, maybe it won't, and hopefully you can build your dream PC gaming computer. Or if you're not here for that and you just want some insight on what goes into a PC and what to look for, then hopefully I broadened your minds a little bit. Thank you for listening. This is Obeda Gamer, and I'll see you in the next one.